It is, yeah. Yeah, I'm just going to turn something off. They're all linked up together, but one of them isn't working properly. So
okay,
internal speakers. Yeah.
Muting everyone. Okay, so settle down onto your backs. And we're not spending too long here, but I thought it is nice to maybe, especially on a Friday morning, just to take that moment to lie down and arrive. How do you feel? Maybe a couple of big sighing breaths, and this letting the weight of your body settle down onto the ground. And the first thing you're going to do, hi Kate. Kate, we're starting lying down when you're ready, so you'd be pleased to hear. So the first thing you're going to do is just let your head roll a little bit to the right and a little bit to the left. So just waiting for Alison to join. So on your back, letting your head roll to the right and to the left. And from letting your head roll, finding a comfortable place to settle the back of your head down. So the center of the back of your head is resting on the ground, or what feels like the center. And if your legs are long, you're now going to bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor. And take a moment to feel the contact of your footprints on the ground. And then you're going to start to let your knees tilt to the right and to the left. That's nice. So just sort of keep this movement easy and comfortable. So if you are feeling a bit stiff or creaky around the back of your pelvis, then just go slow with this. You don't have to take the knees very far. If it all feels very easy today, then of course you can do a larger movement. So it's really about how your body feels today and doing a movement that's helpful for you. So Alison, when you do join us, I think it looks like you're still connecting. We're lying down to start with briefly. So just a couple more times, letting your knees tilt to the right and to the left. I just want to turn my heating on. And so from here, from lying on your backs, tilting your knees from side to side, you're then going to pause in the center and fold your knees into your chest. And so hold around your knees with your hands, that's it. And you can rock a little bit from side to side, or you could circle around the back of your pelvis. Oh, nice to see Basil there, Kate. This is another dog, so let's let you back in again. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do our buzzing breath. So you're going to, from your back, exactly, we're going to take our arms and legs up to the ceiling with a buzz. And we're going to do that 3 times. Al, we're lying down, you'll probably be pleased to hear. And we've got our knees folded into our chest. We're going to take the arms and legs up, shake out and buzz. So let a breath come in with your knees folded into your chest, and then now at the end of your buzz, fold your knees back into your chest. Let a breath come in, and then we'll do that again. So again, fold your knees into your chest, and one last time we're going to take the arms and legs up, have a shake out, do a buzzing breath. Lovely. So I just thought that would wake us up a little bit. And then from there, you're going to lengthen your legs out on the floor. And just see how that feels for a moment. You could always roll your legs, you could bounce your knees. It's not always the most comfortable position for everyone, and we're not going to stay here. It might get even worse, because in fact from here, what I'd like you to do is then roll onto your belly. And yeah, some of us like this, some of us don't. So just see, how does it feel to roll onto your belly and disturbing yourself as little as possible. Oh, nice to see Wilf there. Wilf there, Donna. Got Otto on his favourite spot on the back of the sofa, lying half on the radiator. So on your belly, just settling yourself down, and you can have your arms wherever you like. And the first thing you're going to do is just give your pelvis a bit of a wiggle. So B, you don't have to look, I'm just sort of saying this to everyone. In all these Zoom classes since the beginning of the first lockdown, I was doing a little bit of lying on the belly because it's apparently very good for the lungs and our breathing. So a little bit of wiggling your pelvis, that's it. And then the other one you can do, and I know not all of you like this one, so you don't have to do it, is the one where you bend your knees and take the soles of your feet towards the ceiling. And then you tilt your feet from side to side. Good. So if you don't like that one, of course, don't do it, because Tracy, I know you're not so keen. And if you do this one, and Lynn, again, just check that your lower back's happy with this, because sometimes people don't like it in their lower back, but sometimes people do. So that's it. Good. And then you can, whenever you want to, you can bring your legs back onto the floor. And from lying on your belly, you're going to fold into child pose. So that's it. Good. And settle in child pose for a couple of breaths. So see, how does it feel to be in child pose? Let the weight of your pelvis settle down. Hopefully in child pose, we can feel that nice sort of gentle stretch across the lower back. It starts this process of releasing tightness in the lower back, which is a place where we could, across the back of the pelvis, it's this whole sort of diamond shaped bit of tissue that can get quite tight. And from here, you can have another breath or two. We're going to come onto hands and knees, and you're going to lengthen each leg out and turn behind you. Now, if you've got socks on, they probably need to come off at this point. Actually, they do need to come off. So, and because we're going to do some work into our feet. So on hands and knees, lengthen each leg out behind you, in turn, tucking your toes under. And then on hands and knees, you're going to tuck both sets of toes under. And you're going to do a little bit of rocking forwards and back. The toes tucked under. How does it feel to rock forwards and back? You just know you're not really going forwards in terms of going beyond you're taking the shoulders further forwards than the wrists. It's more just the rocking back. And actually, the next time you rock back, see how it feels then to walk your hands into your knees. Pick your knees up off the floor, so you're up on the balls of your feet. And at this point, you might like to spread your toes out a bit with your fingers, particularly the little toes if they feel a bit jammed up against their neighbours. And you're into a little bit of rocking on the balls of your feet. And see how that feels. So letting the knees come nearer to the floor. And I'm afraid, you'll remember all of these ones. I'm afraid from here, we're going to come into our kneeling foot stretch. Although Tracy, I know you don't mind this at all. So toes tucked under, sitting back on our heels, letting our shoulders drop. Big exhalation, smiling. Just think it doesn't feel too bad today. And then come forwards onto hands and knees, untuck your toes, and drum your feet on the floor. And then you're going to lengthen your legs back behind you in turn. So one at a time, lengthen your leg out, tuck your toes under. And we're going to repeat that little sequence one more time. So lengthen each leg out. And then hands and knees, both lots of toes tucked under, a little bit of rocking backwards, I suppose, taking the hips back over the heels, then bringing the shoulders back over the wrists. So easing into the toes. The next time you rock back, then walking your hands in towards your knees, picking your knees up off the floor, onto the balls of your feet. Again, you might want to spread your toes out a little bit of rocking here on the balls of the feet. And then letting the knees come down, sitting back over your heels and seeing how it feels a second time, which sometimes is a little bit more intense because we might have released a bit of tension and our feet might be flexing a little bit more. So let the shoulders soften, let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. Yes, and then forwards, untuck the toes, lengthen each leg out behind you. And then what we're going to do is come into dog pose and a forward bend and up into standing. But you obviously have a few breaths in dog. So on your hands and knees, you might want to take your hands a bit wider apart, especially if your shoulders are feeling tight. Tucking your toes under, big handprints on the floor, exhaling, rocking your hips back over your heels. And this time picking your knees off the floor so you come into dog pose and you see how it feels. You have a bit of a lengthen out in dog, of obviously bending your knees, one knee, both knees. Easing into the backs of your legs. Good. That's nice. Letting your head go, really let the head hang. That's it. So the back of the neck can release. Lovely. So you can stay in dog for another breath or two if you like. And then from dog pose, you're going to be walking your hands into your feet. So you come into a forward bend. And at that point, if your lower back needs some extra support, you're going to bend your knees, rest your elbows on your thighs. So it really depends how you're feeling today. And yeah, otherwise you can let your arms hang towards the ground. Whatever you're doing with your arms, let your head go. Feel the weight in your footprints, the whole weight of your body, particularly in your heels. And then as you exhale, you're going to roll up into standing, or if you've got your hands, your elbows on your thighs, walk your hands up the thighs. So we arrive in standing. And we're just going to take a moment in standing. So perhaps the first thing, looking at your feet a little distance apart, and then just settling in standing. So you could close your eyes if that feels okay. And you could do a little bit of swaying in standing. So just a sort of swaying from side to side, letting your arms hang, just noticing how your body feels in standing. Feeling your footprints on the floor. Okay. See if you can settle down so that you're dropping your weight down as evenly as possible through both footprints. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. And then open your eyes and come into your sort of swinging, easy twist where we're letting the arms swing from side to side. We're letting the body, the whole of the body move. So we're letting the feet move. And we can slap the arms onto the sides of our body. Just a little bit of, feeling that the whole of us is involved in this. If we're still a bit asleep, I was woken up this morning by one of our little cat Shimmer Star jumping on my face, which was a bit of a shock. I was in a very deep sleep. So if you're like me, you still don't feel that you're quite awake. Hopefully this will start to wake us up a little bit more. Okay, just once or twice more. And then let that go. Come back again to looking at your feet, settling your feet down. We're going to let a breath come in as we exhale, take our arms up. And then we're just going to do a bit of that reaching. So we're reaching up into one arm and we're shifting our weight into that leg and foot. Okay. So as we reach up, we shift our weight into that side of the body. Good. So do that a couple more times and then we'll just bring the arms down because sometimes the arms can get a bit tired and achy in this. So bring the arms down for a moment. And then we'll do the same thing again, but this time you're going to catch one hand around the other wrist and sort of draw yourself up. So take your arms up and I'll just come and kneel. So I think you all know this one, but you're catching one hand. Yes, you don't need to kneel. You can stay and stand. You're catching one hand around your wrist. You're drawing yourself up and over, lengthening through your side. And then you're doing the same thing on the other side. Long through the side of your body. And then we're going to go all the way down into a forward bend again. So again, remember, bend your knees, rest your elbows on your thighs, or of course, release all the way down. Let your head go, let your arms go, or if you're resting your elbows on your thighs, just let the head hang. Lovely. Feel that you're rooting down through your heels and the spine can release forwards. And then in your own time, exhaling, sinking into your heels, rolling up into standing or walking your hands up your thighs. Have a little shake out when you get into standing. We're going to do a couple of quite simple balances. And then we're going to do a little sequence and then we'll come back to one of the balances and do a little bit more with it. So what we're going to do really simply to start with is we're going to shift our weight onto one foot and we're going to bring our other foot to stand on that foot without doing anything fancy. So first of all, what I'd like you to do is just maybe close your eyes and sway a little bit from side to side. And I've got Casper, the cat has joined us. Sway a little bit from side to side and decide which foot you'd like to stand on first. It doesn't matter because we're going to do both. So once you've decided which foot you're going to stand on, open your eyes, shift your weight onto that foot or start that process. And then you're just going to bring the other foot to stand on that foot. And you're going to bring your hands into prayer pose. And we just see how it feels to settle down through that one foot. And obviously that foot's going to be sort of constantly adjusting to help stabilize our body above it. So it may well be wobbling a little bit on the floor and that's absolutely fine. And then sometimes it wobbles a bit more and we fall over and that's fine too. Just let your shoulders soften as much as possible. Rest your thumbs on your breastbone. Let your breath come in, let your breath leave you. Very nice. Lovely, yes. Come down, have a little shake out. And then we'll try exactly the same thing on the other side. So again, it could be helpful just to look down, start by looking at your feet, settling your feet on the floor. Then maybe finding a point to focus your gaze on, somewhere sort of straight ahead and steady. And then shifting your weight onto the second foot. And the foot you just stood on comes to stand on that foot. And we gather our hands into the heart in prayer pose. Thumbs resting on the breastbone. Shoulders softening. And again, how does it feel on this side? And it may be that we chose to stand on our easier side first, which is a good thing. So this side might feel a little bit more, bit less stable maybe, or we might surprise ourselves and feel steadier. Just settling, breathing. And whenever you're ready, come down and have a little shake out. So we're going to do another sort of simple balance, but this time we're going to be bending our knees and balancing with the bent knee. Now, when we bend our knees, it's helpful to take our gaze down more. It helps our knees to feel more comfortable. So perhaps as you could start by looking at your feet, and then as you bend your knees, just let your gaze come a little bit further forwards on the floor. And we're going to stand on the same foot first. So whichever foot you stood on first, we're going to bring our weight onto that foot, and you're going to cross your other leg over that leg. And your gaze might come up a little bit, but it still might be on the floor a couple of meters ahead of you. And you can gather your hands into prayer pose in front of you. And so just seeing, how does it feel to balance on with this bent knee, with the other leg crossed over? I'm just trying to settle here. So settling your shoulders, dropping your tailbone, seeing if the belly can soften and empty. The breath come in, the breath leaves you. Now, it's much more muscular work to balance with this bent knee, so it may be that you don't stay there too long. Have a little shake out. And then again, we'll try the same thing on the other side. So, start by looking down at your feet, and then let your knees bend and let your gaze come forwards a little bit, but still looking down at the floor, as that helps the knees bend a little bit more easily. And then we're going to cross the leg we just stood on over the standing leg. Maybe our gaze moves forwards a little bit on the floor. Can we bring our hands into prayer pose? And then can we settle? Can we let the shoulders drop? Can we let the tailbone drop? Can we feel we've got our shoulders over our hips and our hips over our heel? So it's quite easy in this one to lean forwards, but we're trying not to. We're trying to let the belly soften back as well. Good. Yes, do come out, have a little shake out. So we're going to come back to that balance later on and add the arms in. But first of all, we're going to do a little sequence. I think, before we do the sequence, what I'd like you to do is actually a little stretch out for each foot. So you're going to, one at a time, slide one foot back behind you and flip onto the top of your toes. So it just stretches, quite nice, stretching the front of our ankle out. After those ones, when we bend the knees, we also bend the ankles. So again, do the same on the other side. Slide your foot back behind you, flip onto the top of your toes. That's it. Good. And then we're going to come to the back of our mat. So we're going to do a little sequence from here. We're going to be going into a forward bend and down through a squat onto hands and knees. So bring your hands into prayer pose. We'll do a bit like the beginning of sun salute. So we'll start with our hands in prayer pose. We'll take our arms up and so on. So let a breath come in. As you exhale, take your arms down and then up. Let a breath come in. Feel long and tall here. And then you're going to curl forwards, rounding down, elbows on your thighs if you need. Whereas releasing your arms to the ground. And then starting to bend your knees forwards into your squat. Now, it doesn't matter if your heels come up at all, because from your squat, we're going to be rolling forwards onto our hands and knees. So we're coming onto hands and knees. And once you're on hands and knees, you're going to come into some cat movements. So rounding your back to the ceiling, dipping your spine down to the floor and seeing how these cat movements feel today. And of course, if you feel that you want to add in some tail wagging movements, you can do. So particularly we sort of notice, how does our lower back feel in cat? Can we round our back to the ceiling and start to encourage the lower back to release a little bit? And by letting the spine dip down to the floor, that helps. It just takes off any pressure. So a couple more times, rounding and dipping. And then you're going to stay on hands and knees, but walk your hands a little bit further forwards. So they're not under your shoulders anymore, they're a little bit further forwards. And you can be quite easy with this, just that beginning to rock your weight forwards. So it's the beginnings of face up dog. But depending on how you feel, you may or may not go the whole way. How does it feel to rock your pelvis forwards, to bring your shoulders forwards over your hands? Just a few times. Because we'll come back to this and then we'll go into it a little bit more. And then from here, either from rocking forward or from hands and knees, tuck your toes under and rock all the way up into dog pose. And if it feels a bit of a long dog because your feet were further back for face up dog, then walk your feet in a little bit. So come into dog pose, have a bit of a lengthen out in dog pose, obviously bending one knee, bending both knees. Good, lovely. And from dog pose, you can have a few more breaths in dog, it looks very nice, and then you can fold down into child pose. Or if you prefer to be kneeling or lying on your belly. So these are sort of your alternatives. So just a couple of quiet breaths, settling onto the ground. If you're in child pose, you maybe feel the contact of your forehead on the ground. Letting the weight of your pelvis settle back. Yes, that's it, Donna, settling your pelvis. Good. Maybe let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. And then from child pose, you're going to come onto hands and knees. And you're going to lengthen each leg out behind you in turn. And as you do this, just check whether your feet are on the mat or not, because we're going to come into plank pose in a moment, and it's obviously going to be helpful if your feet are on the mat, not going off the back of it. So yeah, lengthen each leg out behind you in turn, tucking your toes under. So it's just like a half plank pose. And then come organise yourself so your shoulders are over your wrists towards the front of your mat, and you can lengthen each leg, one leg, two legs, back into plank pose. So come into your favourite plank pose and see how it feels. And see how it feels to stay there for a few breaths. We know when we're in that straight line of plank because our abdominals kick in. We don't have to do anything to the abdominals. They will, if our pelvis is neither going down or up, they will be working to hold it in the straight line. Very well done. Yes, looks excellent. And then from plank, before it all gets too much, let your knees come down to the floor. Walk your hands in towards your knees, toes tucked under. Come back up onto the balls of your feet. And so from here, we're going to be sending our heels down and our sit bones up and coming into a forward bend. Heels down, sit bones up into a forward bend and touch the backs of your hands together. So we're going to roll up into standing, or walk your hands up your thighs if you need to. Roll up into standing, trailing our hands up the front of our body, straight up to the ceiling, letting a breath come in, taking the arms wide, and then exhaling, arms in a big circle back into prayer pose. So we're going to do that whole little sequence one more time. And we might go a little bit further into face up dog this time and try a slightly different way. So at the back of your mat, check your feet, look distance apart, hands in prayer pose, let the breath come in. As you exhale, take your arms down and then up. Drop your shoulders away from your ears, let a breath come in, exhaling down into your forward bend. And then from your forward bend, we're bending our knees down into a squat. Doesn't matter if the heels come up, because we're going to be rolling forwards through the balls of our feet onto hands and knees. You can untuck your toes now. You can come to some cat movements, some tail wagging movements. Whatever feels helpful. So how does it feel a second time to be rounding your back to the ceiling, dipping your spine down to the floor? Keeping the movements comfortable, doing what feels right for your body just now. Letting your breath flow in and out. And then from here, we'll take the hands a little bit further forwards and we'll again sort of quite cautiously perhaps, just that rocking forwards. Starting to rock the pelvis forwards, bring the shoulders over the wrists. How does it feel to move towards face up dog? And if the lower back is feeling a bit tight, we could move it using our cat movement. So from hands and knees, we can tuck our toes under. We can round the back to the ceiling, rock the hips back over the heels. Let the breath come in this rocked back place. And then as you exhale, traveling forwards, rounding your back, looking back towards your pelvis. And then when your shoulders come over your wrists, you look forwards, you let your pelvis go, you untuck your toes. We can do that once more if you like. So reversing that movement, rocking back, tucking the toes under, hips all the way back over the heels, let the breath come in, and then traveling forwards into face up dog, rounding your back, untucking your toes, looking forwards. Good. And then coming up into dog pose. See, you might be to go from face up dog into dog pose. Might be a little bit long. You might need to walk your feet in again. Oh, yes. Wilf's enjoying the dog pose. Donnie, you're surrounded by animals there, which is very nice. And then child pose. So folding down into child pose for a few quiet breaths. Good. Lovely dog pose, Sarah. That looks great. So in your child pose, let's just have a couple of breaths where we focus on really softening with the exhalation across the back of the shoulders, down through the arms, into the centers of the palms. So we're receiving an in-breath and then just that softening, settling, undoing with the exhalation. And then we'll be coming onto hands and knees. We'll be lengthening each leg out behind us and revisiting plank pose once more. So it's really helpful, I find, to do this sort of lengthening one leg back, tucking the toes under, leaning the weight down through the arms. So we've got this preparation for plank pose. We can sort of tell at this point, are our hands in a helpful place for when we have both legs, both knees off the ground. So hands towards the front of your mat, lengthening one leg back, tucking your toes under, adding the other leg in. See if you can feel yourself in that long straight line of plank. So we know when we're in that long straight line because we feel our abdominals working. See if we can breathe, not the most easy place to breathe in. And then let the knees come down to the floor and walk your hands back in towards your knees. Pick your knees up off the floor so you're up on the balls of your feet. And some of you may find that your heels can go all the way down to the ground at this point if you find squatting easy. Otherwise, from here, starting to send your knees down, your heels down, and your sit bones up so you come into a forward bend. Rest your elbows on your thighs if that's good for your lower back, or let your arms hang, let your head hang. So we're going to touch the backs of the hands together and roll up into standing, or walk your hands up the fronts of your legs. So touching the backs of the hands, trailing your hands up the midline of your body, straight up to the ceiling, breathing in, arms wide, exhaling. Arms in a big circle, back and round. Good. So just maybe a little shake out and come towards the centre of your mat. So we're going to do a few things in standing now. So you can have a little look at your feet. Settle down on the floor. And we're just going to start to swing our arms from side to side. So the arms cross in front of the body. And cross one arm and then the other. So in a moment, I'm going to suggest we give ourselves a hug with the right arm on top, and then you're not going to have to think about lefts and rights if you do what I tell you. So give yourself a hug with your right arm on top. Drop your shoulders down away from your ears. Have a breath or two here. And then from here, we'll go on into our eagle arms. And then we're going to go back into our eagle legs as well. But I do think it's easiest doing the arms first. So, and we're going to be standing on the right foot. So again, you're going to bend your knees, looking down towards the floor. So you can't see your feet now with your arms here. And then starting to shift your weight onto that right foot and crossing your left leg over the right leg. So we're balancing on this bent knee. Our gaze is perhaps a bit more down than straight forwards. We're just seeing how it feels to breathe, to settle. Well done. Looks fantastic, everyone. Yes, and then do come down, have a little bit of a shake out of arms and legs. Settle your feet down, so have a look at your feet. And settle in standing, come back to swinging your arms, crossing your arms in front of you. And then you're going to give yourself a hug with your left arm on top. There we go, I'm very easily confused with these ones. So dropping your shoulders down away from your ears. And then coming on into your eagle arms on this side. And then again, as we come into the balance, we're probably bringing our gaze down towards the floor. We're bending our knees. We're shifting our weight onto our left foot. So we're crossing the right leg over. If you feel unsteady, your right big toe can always touch the floor. And then just how can we let the shoulders drop? It might be that we can send the elbows forwards away from us. Shoulders drop, tailbone drops, belly softens back. Breathing, settling. Good. And then coming down, a little shake out. So we're going to just do a couple of twisty things now in standing. So come back first of all to this loose swinging twist, which we were doing. where we feel the whole of our body moving. Okay, and then let that go and settle in standing. So we're just going to do a couple of twists in standing where we're trying not to move below the waist. So hands on the pelvis, this bit's not moving. Hands up onto the ribs. Can we turn the rib cage from side to side? So it's going to feel so much more restricted than that last movement. Hands on the shoulders, we do the same thing. So trying not to move our pelvis. Fingers on the crown of the head. As we take our arms up, maybe it feels a little bit easier as our ribs lift and separate. Okay. Let that go. And just a couple of times come back to letting everything move. So we're going to do another sequence. This is going to take us into some lunges and also some lunge twists. So Sarah, you obviously just don't do a very long lunge. So we're going to come to the front of our mat. So this is a bit like the beginning of sun salute. And it's just the very beginning. We'll go into a forward bend and we'll step back into a lunge. So you can have your hands in prayer pose again. You can just feel your footprints, find yourself in standing, feet on the floor, hands in prayer pose. Letting a breath come in as you exhale, taking your arms down and then up. Letting a breath come in and then rolling forwards into a forward bend. Now, in this first forward bend, what we're going to do is step the right foot back into lunge and have a few breaths here. So, yeah, we're just coming into a simple, straightforward lunge for a few breaths. Your hands can be flat on the floor, or you're on your fingertips, your knuckles. Now, it's worth checking at this point whether you can bring your hands flat on the floor, because when we get a bit further on in these lunges, you're going to need to have your hands flat on the floor. And if you can't get them flat, you might want to book under your hand. Okay, we're going to swap sides by stepping that back foot forwards into a forward bend and then stepping the left foot into lunge. So we're going to shift our weight into our left foot, step back into a forward bend, let the head go, then step the left foot back. So we're coming into side two of our lunge. Hands however you like, but do just sort of check in, is it possible here to bring your left hand flat onto the floor? Let's have a couple of breaths. And then from here, we're going to be stepping back into the forward bend. And this time we're going to roll back up into standing, trailing our hands up the front of the body. So pushing off with your back foot, weight into the front foot, back into a forward bend, let the head go. Let a breath come in, touch the backs of the hands together, rolling up into standing. And you could go into a little back arch if you like, letting your gaze come up and your pelvis forwards. You might need to bend your knees and drop your tailbone for that. And then back into prayer pose. So we're going to come down and we're going to do a little bit of a twist in this lunge, just to start off that process. So let a breath come in, exhaling, taking your arms down and then up. Let a breath come in, exhaling forwards into your forward bend, and then step your right foot back. So what we're going to do in this lunge, you don't necessarily need to have the flat of your hand on the floor. It could be your fingertips. And you're turning towards your front leg. So you're turning your ribs. And Sarah, if you prefer to come and do a kneeling twist rather than turning like this, you could do that. So turning towards your front leg. That's it, left hand on the back of your pelvis. Good. Make sure your front knee is over your front heel. Yes, don't let the knee come behind the heel, be good. Okay, and then you're going to step into your forward bend and you're going to step the left foot back and do the same thing. You don't need to, but I'm going to turn around to my mat so I can see you. So back into your forward bend, stepping the left foot back. How does it feel to turn towards your front leg? Right hand on the back of your pelvis. Good. and then untwisting. We're going to step back into the forward bend, roll up into standing. The backs of the hands touching, let a breath come in as you exhale. Rolling up into standing. Go into your little standing back arch if you like, so the pelvis could come forwards, your gaze could come up. Hands down in front of you. Now, we're going to do one more variation of the lunge twist, and this time, if you did want a book under your hand, because this is when we take the back knee off the ground. So if you wanted a book under your hand, just have it near you so it's there. And yeah, something the right thickness. And then hands in prayer pose. Let me go to this end. Let a breath come in when you're ready. Exhaling, taking the arms down and then up. Let the breath come in. Exhaling down into a forward bend. Stepping your right foot back. Now, sorry, you could, if you don't want to do this, you could be sitting with one leg long and one knee bent and twisting towards the bent leg. Yeah. So you're in your lunge. Your right hand is going to stand on the floor where your left foot would be if you were in standing. And that's where you might need to have the book. You're turning towards your front leg. Your left hand's on the back of your pelvis. And then you let your back knee come off the ground. Your toes are tucked under. And then you reach forwards with your left fingers. So you've got this long diagonal line from your back heel through to your front fingers. And you have a few breaths there. That's it, Sarah. Well done. Very good. And then you release your knee back to the ground. You untwist back to a normal a lunge. Step back into your forward bend. Let your head go. And then you're going to step your left foot back into your lunge. So Sarah, obviously swap over your legs. That's it. Good. So in your lunge, this time the left hand is going to stand on the floor. And if you can use your arm a bit like you do in plank pose, then you can really lean into that arm when you bring your back knee off the floor. So remember in this one, we're turning towards the front knee. And as the back knee comes off the floor, and particularly as we reach forwards, we're still trying to be turning our ribs towards our front leg. Good. Now, when you come down from this one, rather than going back up into standing, you're going to come onto hands and knees and then have a bit of a lengthen out in dog pose. So you're doing something nice and even and familiar. And then child. Come into your dog pose and perhaps just staying in this dog pose for a few extra breaths, seeing how it feels. I was just thinking when I came into that dog, how nice it felt. It might just be the contrast with that lunge twist, which is a bit challenging. So dog, and then whenever you want to, folding into child, lovely dog poses. Child pose. If you prefer to be kneeling or lying on your belly, you can do. Good. Very nice dog, Donna. That looks beautiful. Taking lessons from Wilf. Otto is now wedging himself down between the sofa cushion and the back of the sofa. Yes, yeah, we're talking about you. So a couple more breaths in child pose. Yes. And we've got one more little lively thing to do, which is going to take us down into lying down. Yeah. So another breath or two in child pose, and then come over into sitting and lean back on your arms and lengthen your legs out. So you probably guessed it. What we're going to do, this obviously starts off quite pleasant, is this one where we're sliding. We're trying to be round. So we're sliding our hands from our knees and we're looking down at our belly. So this is sort of stage one, and we're thinking about the back rounding out. So it gets a little bit harder work in a bit. So yes, and the feet stay on the floor to start with. So a few times thinking about your back being round. Looking down at your belly as you lean back and forwards. Letting the shoulders relax as much as possible. And then we come on to, even the second stage isn't too bad, we come on to letting the feet pick up and then looking forwards to come back up again. Okay? So coming down, coming back up. What we're trying to do is not go down all the way. We're trying to sort of balance on the middle of our back. So going down, knees stay bent, coming back up. So perhaps a couple more times, because I do find it gets a bit easier the more you do it. You know, your body starts to understand, your nervous system starts to understand what you're actually trying to do. So rolling down, rolling back up. And then maybe just lean back on your hands, give your legs a little bit of a lengthen, because then we will do our lovely abdominal ones. This is probably the last thing I came back to doing when I was in my sort of rehabilitation with yoga. So we're going to be rolling back, as you know, picking the feet up, and then lengthening the legs out. Oh. And then coming back up. We're going to do this one 3 times. So after the third one, you can lie down on your backs. So we start off with that leaning back, looking at the belly, picking the feet up, trying to balance on the middle of the back, lengthening our legs out. So we don't have to tell our abdominals to work. They're quite clearly doing their own thing. Oh, one last time, rolling back, trying to balance on the middle of the back, lengthening the legs out. Not very easy to breathe here or speak. Oh, and then lying down. So yes, well done, well earned. Lie down. So we're going to do a few little movements lying down. And yeah, so you could put on socks at this point, certainly, and you could have a blanket to hand. And settling onto your backs. So once you've got yourself organised with your socks and you're lying down, you can be lying with your knees bent or your legs long. It's quite nice to bring your hands onto your belly so that you can feel how soft the belly is now. Now it's not trying to hold you up. So you can feel your belly responding to your breathing. The other thing that I always like to do after that one is to let my head roll from side to side, because it's not only the abdominals that work in that, also the muscles in the front of the neck are working to stop your head flopping back. It's an unpleasant thought, that is. The head flopping back, not the muscles working. So letting your head roll from side to side on the floor. Easing out your neck, letting the throat soften and relax. And settling your head down, centre of the back of your head on the floor. Letting a breath come in, letting a breath leave you. And if your legs are long, exactly, Helen, if your legs are long, you're going to bend your knees and you're going to start to tilt your knees to the right and to the left. Good, Lovely, that looks beautiful. So once, twice more to each side with the knees. And then settling in the center, still keeping your knees bent and your feet standing on the floor. And then come to a little bit of tilting your pelvis on the floor. So tipping your pelvis towards your head, feeling your lower back flatten out and make more contact with the floor. Tipping your pelvis away from your face. So you feel your lower back arch a little bit away from the floor. So this is such a great movement for finding some mobility around our middle, for releasing tightness in the lower back. So it's a bit like cat, but lying on our backs. And from here, when you're doing the movement where your bottom of your pelvis is coming off the ground, your lower back is flattening out, you can then go a little bit further and go on into bridge pose, just a very easy bridge pose a couple of times. That's it. If your hands are on your belly, they might be better off by your sides now. Yeah, so just a couple of really easy bridge poses, which again, I just think always feels nice after boat, our little abdominal balance. So we just feel sort of soft and open in the front of the body. When you've done a couple of bridge poses, you can fold your knees into your chest and hold around the top of your knees. And do a little bit of rocking. So if you folded your knees into your chest, you can do a little bit of rocking from side to side, circling around the back of your pelvis. And we're going to finish like we started. We're going to come back to our buzzing breath and taking our arms and legs up to the ceiling 3 times with a buzzing breath. And then we'll just settle down quietly in lying. So knees folded into your chest, let a breath come in, and then arms and legs up and buzzing. So fold back in, let your breath come in, and then again lengthen your limbs to the ceiling, shake them out if you like, buzzing. Folding in, let a breath come in, and one last time. So now you can settle down, you can put your blanket on if you have a blanket, and just settle down quietly. Enjoy this little opportunity to do nothing, to just be, which is probably one of the hardest things when we're at home. So you can lie with your knees bent or your legs long, whatever feels more comfortable. You can always put your lower legs up on a bed or a sofa if you like. Your hands can rest on the front of your body or your arms down by your sides. If it's helpful to have a big sighing breath or two, then do that. We really let the shoulders rest back. We can hold so much in our shoulders, so just let them settle and rest. Let the arms rest. Let your palms, the center of your palms, soften. If the hands feel busy, you can always clench them into fists and then release them a couple of times. Let your eyes close and let your eyes rest back into the eye sockets. Let your tongue rest in your mouth. And let your jaw be soft and relaxed. Feel the weight of your body. Imagine the weight of your bones resting on the ground. Heavy, solid, steady. And then gathering your attention into your breathing and just noticing, where do you feel your breath in your body? How does your breath feel? And just allowing it to be exactly as it is. There's no need to change it. Just let the breath flow in. Let the breath flow out. Let your body rest. So in a moment, I'm going to ring the singing bowl 3 times. So just stay where you are until we reach the silence at the end of the 3rd sound. So thank you, everyone. There's no rush. If you can carry on lying down, then please do. Thank you.